Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement. Welcome to the Larkcast. Yes, my friends, welcome to the Larkcast. I always wondered if I could do like an evening. Remember like evening talk radio? Not even talk radio, just like evening radio, dude. That had like 80s jams that were playing when you were a kid. And they had like that subtle, like soft-spoken voice that would come on there like between tracks. And you would just find yourself like just relaxing. Like, man.
You got that voice. I can see the sun setting right now, driving down the freeway.
Oh, dude, thank you, man. Thank you. That's I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. I remember when I was a kid though, I was like, dude, who gets that job? How cool is that? Like I just sit here in this chair and drink some coffee and just get to talk a little bit between songs.
You can only listen to that voice and that vibe when you got your car in cruise control.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you'd fall asleep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, for all of you out there who are listening right now or watching on our lesser known channel of YouTube, you'll notice this is a different face with me today. And this is Mike Jarrell. Mike, or do you go by Michael?
Mike.
That's what I thought. I just, it's one of those things where like, your contact pops up in the phone and it's like, okay, I've known this guy. I've been talking with him like literally every other day for like, a couple of years now. So should I have been saying Michael this whole time? And he's just really, but then I was reminded like, well, he's from Philadelphia. He would have just told me like immediately, like, hey, dude, don't call me that. My name's Mike.
I definitely wouldn't have let it go on for years. For years.
I was watching this comedian the other day and he was talking about being from the South. And he said, man, I always thought my whole life that I was just a very polite, patient person, just uber friendly. And it took me until I was 40 to realize like, no, I'm just anxious. I'm from the Southeast. We're all anxious. That's why we're all friendly on the surface. Oh man, I was dying laughing. Anyways, I digress. Mike, seriously, glad you're here. And let me just make this really quick before we dive into your story here, man, and some really good news and some encouragement that I know you're gonna invite us into here. Mike, my friends out there, reached out through an email. We had made contact years ago prior to that, but I just know like a couple of years ago, reached out through an email, said, hey man, can we chat? And I know we've had you on the podcast one time in the past, in relation to a different story. But I still remember that moment and just kind of laughing, going, oh, brother, here we go. Another guy from the church world reaching out, going, hey, we any chance we could talk together? Because they're just naturally need to sit me down and correct me. And I was like, oh, brother, here we go. And then we got on the phone and it was the total opposite. I think your first words were like, is this Jesus really this good? The one you keep talking about? And I was like, wait, what? And away the conversation went, man. And so out of that came friendship and hanging out and spending time together. And now you have stepped into not just being a part of this movement of misfits here, but you're like stepping into a role, man, to help spread good news and empower people to be friends for Lark up in the Northeast. So yeah, friends, welcome a new team member here. And with that said, what's been going on, man? What's Mike's story right now? What's pressing?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think for a long time, I was just talking about this with my wife, Jackie, that we used to have people here in our house every week. We went out of a large traditional attractional church, wanted to do these decentralized gatherings over beers and dinner tables and conversations with people, but a lot of it felt like people were again just coming to a meeting once a week.
Mm,
And it's, I think, easy to check the box of come to a meeting, come to an event, and you don't really see each other outside of that. And where we started to see stories happen were the people that we became really good friends with. And we were sharing some of the freedom that we experienced and the good news with our friends. Um, but a lot of the stuff that we do week to week to week, you go, I don't really see people enjoying Jesus. I don't really see any depth of friendship happening. I see people just wanting to come to another meeting. And
mm,
that gets exhausting because we had so many different groups and gatherings and meetings going on. But I think really two things that over the past couple of years and talking with you and our friendship getting closer and tighter and processing a lot of things that can easily lead to burnout. I just want to get all these groups going and impact the region, the nation, the world,
yeah.
multiply all over the place. And you get to this point where all the stuff you were doing to kind of, you know, map out your growth and your habits and your practices and your rhythms made you less healthy. That's what happened for me. I just got to this
Mm,
place of burnout and exhaustion, and it wasn't really changing a whole lot. Probably made me enjoy Jesus less, not more. And on the outside, you're rocking it. On the inside, you're rotten. And you're like, man, I just need, I think, two things. One is to really believe, embrace, and enjoy the good news that Jesus has declared. And two, um, I think I just need friends. And I think my friends need friends that they can
yeah.
process this good news with. And that's kind of been the last couple of years is figuring out when you come to the conclusion that I think what the church is friendship. The next thing you realize is, man, I don't think myself or a whole lot of other people know how to do friendship that well. It's
Yeah.
people struggle to even do that. It's easier to just do a meeting, but to figure out what's it mean to be a friend? What is that? And is it that
Yeah.
simple for for faith? Is it that simple?
Mm. Yeah, I remember that was definitely a lot of our conversations, man. Was I think you nail on the head. Like, is this Jesus really this good? Did he mean it when he said it's finished? Because I feel like I know in your case, like, you led in in the church world, you led things that were large and you hit all the marks you're supposed to hit out there and just kind of found yourself in the middle of it going, there's got to be a better way. And so then you shift to the more like missional micro thing that became real popular and it's, multiplying all these little small communities. But eventually you still hit a wall in that
Mm-hmm.
because at the core is this idea of faith that you manage. And if you're a leader, then it's not just your faith you're managing, it's everybody else's.
Russ,
And
I remember being at a
that's rough.
yeah, I remember being at a place where I'm like, why are some of these people that are friends of mine that care about some of the same stuff not returning my text messages? And then I
Yeah.
realized that when they saw a text from me, it was me checking up on their group and whether they got their group together and what's happening
Yep.
with their group and what are their new stories. And and so it felt like, man, Mike is just wanting to make sure that this thing is moving and progressing and things are happening so that we can prove that we're becoming a movement, and this thing's really taken off.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't think they were even excited to see my name pop up anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard stories, people like that, man, that have gone through like what you're talking about. And being sarcastic right now because I get it. I know a lot of people in the same boat, man, that saw my name pop up for all those years and just like, you're sincere and you're right, you're trying to lead, man, but at the end of the day, right, you've got to this thing that you've got to keep going, keep growing. You got to validate it. And you're right, you forget how to just be a friend. And I feel like within the system, everybody else sort of forgets to what it's like to be a friend. And I think it's there, man, that everything sort of ties together, right? Like that's where the understanding of who this God is that's already made his home in us, right? Where you start to realize that it's man, it's in the seeing of him. It's in the living independence upon him, who he is for me. That's actually the life of faith. And it's in that dependence, I'm free. And then from there, everybody's like, well, free to do what? And it's weird, man, because within the religious landscape, like you say that, and everyone's like, well, man, if you're free, well, then you'll just run out, And of course, they have this long, laundry list of all the things where you're going to go do to destroy your life and destroy the world. And meanwhile, I think Jesus is like, no, you're free to be a friend. That's where you'll actually find fulfillment. And
Yeah, I was,
it looks like the Trinity, by the way. That thing that you were created to participate in.
mm-hmm.
But it
Yeah,
feels so, what's the word? Insufficient, I think. Because again, if you go back to the root of it, your faith has to be producing things, and this unplanned friendship feels like just insufficient toward that end. And it's man, all of a sudden you're like now you're in like this endless loop of like anxiety. And dude, it's a real bear, man.
I I don't think we even realize. I think so much of it is subconscious. How much our faith was shaped if you grew up in the church at all, which I did, and I know a lot of people who did that. We feel conditionality.
Mm,
We think primarily as God as a judge, not as a father,
yeah.
and so we really kind of feel like uh, I'm maybe I'm not in, or what if the love isn't there if I don't prove that I'm a real one,
Mm.
if I don't keep up the performance, um, regardless of what any of my kids do. There's never a question that I'm going to unfather them, that I'm going to quit loving them.
Yeah.
I'm there for them. I love them. I'm not going away, no matter what you do. So, to your point, I was talking to some friends the other day, and they said it sounds like, based on what you're saying, that people can just do whatever they want, right? So, I need you to speak to this.
Mm.
And I said, well, they can. And I could see the the looks on their faces like, what? What are you saying? You're saying they can do whatever they want? And I'm like, yes, they can. And really, God allows people to do that every day. People do whatever they want. Um,
Isn't that such a like why is that shocking? Like when has humans never been free to do whatever they want?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then you say, so you're saying I could just, do all these bad things and I'm still loved, and I'm going, yeah, absolutely. Well, then why wouldn't I do these things? And my response is,
Mm,
well, what happens when you do those things? Well, then maybe I could go to jail, or I'm looking over my shoulders, or I'm feeling anxious, or I feel regret. And I go, well, then that's why you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it because it's going to complicate your life. not because it's going to make you unloved, not
Yeah.
because it's going to make you disowned as a son or daughter, but because it's just going to complicate your life.
I don't know, man. I feel like you're making it too simple.
We got to skip. We almost think that people will not desire to do things that make their life smoother unless we scare them. We
Yeah.
have to scare them, and we have to scare them with being disowned, and we have to scare them with hell. And it's the
Yeah.
only way that we can get them to reform their behavior, which is really the ultimate goal, is to get them to
Yeah.
shape up. That's it.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned this one time on here before, but I can remember when Karl Barth, the theologian, came to the United States. He only came once. I think he spoke at the University of Chicago. It was in a live interview, and it was, everything that was stated was written down, recorded, and went into a biography later on. But they asked him like on stage, do you, or and this is at the time when like Billy Graham was super, right, famous. And they said, "Are you a fan of Billy Graham?" And he said, "Well, he's a very nice gentleman." And so in my conversations with him, do I like him as a, as a person? Well, of course. But you're asking me, do I approve of what he's doing? I would say no. And you could hear like a pin drop in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, wait, what? He said, yeah, his popularity is very simple to explain, folks. Graham, with the gospel that he preaches, begins with fear. The gospel that Jesus brings begins with love. And the truth about humans is we are far more interested, far more motivated by what we fear. That's why it
Mm-hmm.
works.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, like, I went into ministry, in North Carolina. I planted and pastored in the town that Billy Graham lived in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So hearing that, like at first, I just remember being like, I can't even read these words. This is, but he's right. He's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We we're we're far more interested, far more motivated by what we fear. And so yeah, man, I agree
But
with
we
you. I think
start we start with people being out, right? It's like the very starting point is you're out, and if you believe these things, you can become in. And so
yeah,
the very starting point is that you're not accepted.
yeah. Yeah, you're not a child because he fathered you. Um Instead, if you do ABC, right, then he'll somehow love you and can be present with you. It's a weird idea of like God somehow is too like he's too holy to be with messy humans, which is just really, 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 really odd for me.
It's the opposite of what he says in the Gospels. I didn't come
Yes.
for the righteous. I came for the unrighteous.
Yeah. Yeah, or how about like the book of John, where like Jesus literally is described is defined as the God, um, yeah, who's the one who's shining the light from within you, within the darkness, not upon the darkness. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm with you, man. And so I guess what you're saying is what you've been learning and seeing, like me, is because people begin with that fear of separation, they really start clinging to transformation is like, dude, that's it. That's what the gospel's all about. And not understanding like, no, we don't when God tells us not to do something, he's literally saying, hey, I love you, don't get hurt. And here's how you'll get hurt. Here's how you'll hurt others. You don't need to do that. Trust me, walk with me. It's going to be a much better story.
Rush, you gotta go
It's
see you gotta go see Thunderbolts, the new Marvel movie.
all right.
You you gotta
I know
see
you
it.
shot me. I know you shot me a text last night, and all you said was like, "Bro, have you seen this?" You got
It
to see this, so you're gonna have to fill me in. I did see the trailer, I ain't gonna lie, and in the trailer, I started smiling. And my oldest son, who's 27, and my youngest, who's 8, were with me. We were at the Captain America movie, and I looked at my oldest son, and I was like, "These this sounds like a Lark movie,"
Mhm.
just from the trailer. But that's all I know. So,
I think
what's the scoop?
there are gonna be so many traditional Marvel people that don't like it. Um, I loved it. I loved it. I thought, man, if this isn't the gospel from start to finish, all over this movie, you've got a bunch of a bunch of hero figures in the movie that are screw ups that have a rough past and a lot of darkness and these traumatic experiences where they've
Mm,
been discounted. They're kind of the scrub losers of the hero universe that got thrown away or tossed to the side. And then you have another figure who looks like just a regular dude. And the movie's
mm,
Bob. And nobody can figure out who he is or what he's about. But at some point, they realize, and he realizes that he's got these, because of experimental practices on him, that he's got these superhero powers. But it's really cool because they go into depression and the internal issues that people deal with
mm,
in their heart and their soul. And this guy's got a darkness going on in him, and it's just magnified through his superpowers. And so he's using his darkness to just evaporate people. And then you see these messed up heroes that turn around, and as he's eliminating people in their darkness, they go into his darkness, enter
whoa!
it, and then they go like into this room where it's like memories of trauma.
Spoiler
And
alert, folks.
oh my gosh, yeah, spoiler alert, but it's the gospel. I got to go there, man. And so they get in there and they find him in this room that's like a safe room. And he said, I like it in here because it's safer. I hide in
Mm,
here. And they said, take us to the darkest room. And they end up in the darkest room of his darkness where he confronts the darkest part of himself. And he starts
mm,
like beating the crap out of the darkest part of himself. And as he's doing it, he's becoming dark. And then all these heroes that are messed up come running and they surround him and they pull him off of himself. And then you begin to see light and a
mm.
release from all of that. And like he's being reconfigured and healed at the bottom of the darkest part of his darkness.
Yeah.
And then in all of that, they love each other. It's just a crazy, it's a crazy, the opposite of what you would expect from Marvel and really any kind of
Sounds like good news as freedom and church's friendship.
mm-hmm, of messy people who have
Yeah.
messed up past, who love each other and come around each other that feel inadequate, um,
Mm,
that bring light into the darkness. I mean, it was just beautiful, beautiful. But I can see it was the opposite of the message of you got the really polished, clean, superhuman good guy that beats the crap out of the bad guy and wins.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
just was very different and very beautiful, especially when you grab on to the message that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the former, you have the, the lie of the garden, right? The desire for control. And then you've got this hero who comes along who possesses it and provides it to others, and right, we cheer. But in the what you're describing is a people who've come to the realization that they don't have control
Mm-hmm.
and they're flawed and frail, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're loved.
Yep. Yep.
And
The,
it's within that, right? Like that's where you start to see the beauty. And as you were mentioning earlier, like with friends who get so caught up in the fruit of transformation, which is from someone else, not us, by the way. It's like it's almost like it's why no one ever really gets to be honest, or the church isn't made up of just everyday friends who can go into the honest places with people,
Mm-hmm.
because we have this sort of like looming transformation thing that's like hanging over our heads that they got to achieve, we got to achieve. And it just keeps you from just actually being honest, being vulnerable,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and getting into the root of like what's really going on, man.
Yeah, I think the other realization for me over the years is this whole leadership myth of we've got these people that are much more godly and have their crap together and look
Mm,
like Jesus, and we follow them, and they're mature and qualified and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen within myself and within the other people that I know and love that they're messed up. I'm messed up. The people around me are messed up. In within the Christian world, and just within the neighborhood, everyone I know. And the people in the church world and outside of the church world, I don't see really that much of a difference in their morality, right?
yeah.
And I actually see people doing incredibly generous and self-sacrificial things that have no interest in the faith whatsoever.
Mm.
And they represent the image of their maker in the way that they care and sacrifice for the people around them.
So
And
weird that
it's
God could be at work in someone without them knowing it yet.
exactly, exactly. And there's such a beauty then, I think, of taking away the label entirely and saying that what we have is Christ at work in broken humanity. And what we want to do is help each other see it so that
Mm,
we can begin to enjoy the Christ that is at work in us to reveal his love and his kingdom. That's it.
yeah. It is kind of simple when you put it like that. Yeah, man, that leadership thing, I would agree. It's without getting like too technical, just the way my brain works. Sometimes I back up to see things at like a root, and then sort of see like the connection points along the way. And I've noticed like over the years of just trying to let Jesus mean what he says and just go live into that. You see like the hurdles, right, that people face, man. Control it's a myth, but so many of us have grabbed onto it, and it makes grace feel risky, right? It turns faith into a project. It calls for an idea of church with borders and boundaries and all these things. But going back to what we were saying earlier, it's like it all starts with this sort of like this when you grab onto that myth of a God who left us, this separation, and somehow, right, we got to get back. And you could say, like, well, Jesus is the one that brings us back, but all you have to do is, I'm like, well, if there's anything that all you and I have to do, then it ultimately makes us the savior in the story, not Jesus. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what we've discovered is like faith is paramount, yes, but faith is awakening you to reality. It's not making reality. But back to what I was saying, if you start with that separation, then your faith, my faith, is ultimately about how we achieve justification,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we need this high structured idea of church that Jesus never did, right? Humans came up with, because we really do hold this idea that, dude, we've got to bring about human sanctification, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
transformation. And out of that births all these crazy ideas of leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't let the scriptures as it speaks to elders and deacons, like we don't actually let it say, we don't let it mean what it says. We add to it. And you're right, man. You wind up with this weird criteria, and you've got, the ones that get it up here, and then the rest of us are all sort of down here. And these guys are, or ladies in some cases, are working really hard to hide their junk so that they can maintain their their influence, and then we're all working really hard to hide our junk so we can climb some ladder because naturally we should be moving right toward this. And that whole like friendship, enter the darkness, messy,
Mhm.
it's lost, man.
It's
I remember one time, I gotta say, I gotta share this because I remember one time we were chatting on the phone not too long ago, and I know a lot of times our phone calls always are, can begin with like, "Hey man, I'm a little pissed right now. Walk me off a ledge." Right? Or I'm really struggling
at,
right now,
at least
something.
at least once a week.
And I'll never forget. I was heading to a meeting, and you'd called. And I was like, "Hey man, what's up?" And you're like, "Okay, dude. I'm staring at like 6 posts right now from people that I know and care about that are just really, really just pressing hard, man, on the qualifications of leadership and the need for these superhuman heroes
Mhm.
for the church to ever achieve what it's supposed to achieve." And
Mhm.
it's and I remember we kept chatting, and you're like, "How come nobody ever just throws out an ad that's like," and then you started basically giving like a modern example of like certain Bible characters. And I don't know if
I'm
you can
like,
recall.
I'm like Russ. What if I were to say, man, I got this great, I think future network leader for Lark that could kind of take over a region of the country, and I want to bring him on to an interview with you, and he's going to bring three of his wives with him.
Right? Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah, I was
that's
I was gonna
that's what
share
you
what you
see in the
shared, but
scriptures.
yeah. I wanted you to, that's what
Like,
you
that's
see. Yeah.
actually that's actually in the Bible. Or you go, man, Russ, I got this girl that was working in a warehouse, and she got really ticked off with one of her coworkers, and she was seeing somebody being treated incorrectly, and she just beat the crap out of him, hit him with a hammer. They ended up dying, threw him in a dumpster, fled the city. But
Yeah.
now she's living in Albuquerque, started a new life. Things should be great. We're gonna send her back to that city, and she's gonna be a hub leader out there.
I know because you say those things out loud and people are like, well, that's insanity. But like, but what I don't think sometimes what you realize is like, yeah, Mike's talking about Moses.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moses, David, Solomon, Abraham.
Yeah.
I think I'll pimp off this wife. I think, you know what? We couldn't
Yeah.
conceive, so the cleaning lady's gonna bear our child.
Yeah. 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 I'm gonna just go ahead and force the cleaning lady into this other room over here. And oh, and by the way, I we got into a tough spot just because this is gonna come out, guys, if you do a background search on me, but got in a tough spot in one city and I don't know. I was feeling a little, insecure at the moment, like I might get hurt. So I just told them they could all just have my wife for the night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not once, but twice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, well, like, and of course everybody hears that and they're like, that's ludicrous. I'm like, yeah. What's also ludicrous is you're telling everybody, man, what we really need are leaders like this guy right here, the father of faith, Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's who I was just talking about
Yep.
was Abraham.
Yep.
The
Yep.
Bible, dude, takes care to show the frail and flawed humanity of every character
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's all there is in humanity is frail and
Yep.
flawed and
Mm-hmm.
foolish at times, some more than others, all but one, I should say. And the one doesn't show up with like a cleanup project. He shows up, with a rescue
Yep.
in me, in me, you'll live and dwell, and I in you. And it's like, man, there's something beautiful about that. And definitely gets lost, dude.
Oh, it it's so lost, and we feel like we have to add a you know, some sort of caveat onto the end of
Yeah.
that. Make sure that, people don't just rest in that.
Can't do that, man. Can't do that.
You gotta suddenly say, but now here's the stuff you gotta fix up and change or achieve. That's the other thing. It isn't just the stuff you gotta get rid of, it's all the stuff you gotta do.
Yeah.
Um, all the things you gotta create. And the enjoyment goes away quick, man. It's all about hustling to do more things,
Yeah.
create more things, achieve more things. And you don't see a lot of people out there just going, man, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
They're going, man, I'm just fighting the good fight. And it freaking sucks. This is so.
Yeah. But he told us we gotta suffer. It's like, no, that's not what that means. But it's supposed to be hard, man, because that's what it means to take up your cross. I'm like, I don't know. I think take up your cross means die. There's not a whole lot of
Mm-hmm.
suffering after you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what he's inviting us into is to let go so we can finally live. And of
Yeah.
course, with that, people are like, so are you guys saying like, that the Abraham, like Abraham's struggles or Moses' struggles or David's struggles, right? Like these were somehow like something we should aspire to. It's like such a weird thing, right? Like where the brain goes in those conversations where we're like, no, we're not advocating these things. Of course, God has shown us what's good and worthy to walk in, or where, if we choose to ignore that, where we're going to, just constantly undo harmony and face harm, right? Endlessly. Uh, that's not going anywhere. Let's just stop confusing it with that if somehow you've struggled, you're disqualified, or if somehow you're wrangling your flesh into submission, that it's somehow the fruit of the spirit instead of just the fruit of your flesh,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, man, just let
This
let
is
that be
because
what it is. Don't drag it into the good news.
it's because we primarily see God as a judge, not a dad. And so people are
Yeah.
going, man, uh, if you were to switch the conversation to your own kid, right? Like my love for my son isn't because he didn't rob a bank.
Right.
And it doesn't go away if he did.
Yeah.
It's still there. And
Yeah.
so nobody's saying to me, Mike, you love your son because he didn't rob a bank, right?
Right.
Or your love remains because he stays away from bank robberies,
Yeah.
or that he proves he's one of your real children because he's not robbing banks. When you start looking through it through the lens of family and relationship, it sounds stupid and silly. It truly
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. It does.
I was talking with a woman. I don't know if I shared this story with you, but she said if anyone ever hurt my daughter, I'd kill him. Right.
Mm,
And I said, unless it was your son that hurt your daughter. And I said, all
mm,
God sees when he looks at humanity is his sons hurting his daughters and his daughters hurting his daughters and his daughters hurting his sons. That's it. And all he wants is for his sons and daughters to be brought back around the table and feast together. That's it.
mm.
And we think through the lens of judge instead of dad, who's just like, would you all just quit? It's almost like when you're driving on a trip and your kids are in the back seat arguing with each other.
Yeah.
And you just want them to shut up. But when you address it, what do? Immediately they're like, but she did this. No, but he did this. Well, it's because she blew on me, but his leg was touching my leg. And so they go back and forth, and you're like, I don't think you realize I don't care about who's right or more wrong or who started it. I just want a peaceful ride to the beach. That's it.
Yeah.
Like I just want a peaceful ride. That's the only thing I care about. I don't care about who started it, who's right. I just want you guys to get along. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, what are we concerned about? We're always concerned about who's right, who's wrong, who started it, who created this mess.
Yeah.
And the father is going, I just want you guys to love each other. I want you to get along. I want you to quit
Yeah.
like flicking each other in the arm or elbowing each other in the back seat.
Yeah.
That's my concern, is that you guys
Yeah.
would love each other.
Yeah, you're all at this party that I've thrown.
Hmm.
Instead of enjoying the feast and enjoying each other's company and laughing and until you cry and sometimes crying till you laugh.
Yep.
You're all caught up in a perpetual endless middle school lunchroom
Yep.
of
And
who's
and
in and
and
who's out and who's right and who's wrong and who's
and
winning and
Russ
who's losing.
and Russ, if you get along in the back seat or not, I
Yeah.
I don't love you or not love you because of, how the car trip went. I still love you. The only thing you affect is the ability for me to enjoy the car ride or not.
Right. And then now
Enjoy
your
this car
inability to
ride.
enjoy the car ride and everyone
It,
else's ability to enjoy the car ride.
you're just like, this ride sucks. Do I love you? Yes. But this ride is a pain in the butt right now. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the only thing you're thinking. It's never in question that we love each other and that I
Yeah.
got you. It's just, this is miserable and this feels way longer than it needs to feel.
Yeah. Which all goes right back, man, full circle, to kind of what you brought up at the beginning, just really seeing the beauty of the good news is freedom and the church is friendship. Like when you grab onto what you're talking about and see dad through that lens, it really does take on a new dimension within the car ride and something to enjoy, man, instead of something to tolerate, right?
Mhm.
Instead of something to fix, to overcome. It's uh it's a game changer, man.
Maybe a further conversation that we got to have is, what's friendship?
Yeah,
Is
that is a
I
good one.
I think it's a real, people know acquaintances and people know
Yeah.
events, and people know being a part of a group or like a sports league for a season,
Mm-hmm.
seeing people seasonally, but struggle to think about what does it mean to actually be a friend. And then I think when they hear this news that we're talking about, they try to put together regular events and call it friendship because they're not even quite sure what friendship is. I,
Yeah.
I think it's a real challenge.
100%. 100%. So let's hit pause and let's pick up with that one.
You got it.
Tony be a good one on for that one as well. He'll be back next week. I'll hit him up, dude, see what we can get figured out. But that's a great question because we've talked about it through a myriad of examples or even from the scriptures in regards to like just what it is, what it's rooted in, why it matters. But I think there is a practical understanding of it that is often missed, lost, and thus missed out on.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, let's do that. Thanks for
Look
being with
forward
me,
to it.
man. Serious. I know it's short notice, but I was like, you know what? This guy's been running and gunning and spreading good news up in the Northeast and meeting people and gonna get some parties, some Lark parties going up there. And I was like, man, we gotta
Mhm.
we gotta get you back on the podcast. One, just to kind of hear like what you're seeing, learning, doing, but also just to take a minute and sort of share with everybody out there, like, hey guys, this is Mike, and
Yeah.
you'll be hearing more from him. So, man, again, thanks for jumping on. Love the stories. The car ride, I'm gonna take that with me, and I'm definitely gonna go check out Thunderbolt.
Oh, you got to see it. You're gonna love it.
I'm going.
It'll
I'm going
be.
this week. I'm going this week, dude.
It's gonna be
You,
like the adopted Marvel movie of Lark.
we're just maybe we'll just go through like all of our team photos on the about page. We'll
Yeah.
all just we'll all just pick a character from that
That's it.
movie. Oh, dude. All right, man. Till next
All right.
time.
You got it. See ya.
Cheers.